to be a lot of me thanking you because I feel really good about finishing NaNo, and that makes me just feel like grateful in general. And so yeah, if this gets a bit sappy. Hi, I'm Kayla Amanda. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for being here. Not just for this video, but in general, especially when it comes to my NaNo videos. It's the first time in a while that I've won NaNo, and it's the first time in even longer than that that I felt motivated and inspired to like really push for my NaNo. And I think a lot of that is down to you guys. I have you guys here as like an accountability buddy, as someone who knows what commitments I've made and who knows that I said I was going to write. And I kind of have to prove it to you. When I do a vlog, I know that if I skip a day of writing or I don't really give it my all, that will be reflected in the footage. So it becomes obvious when I didn't write, and it becomes obvious when I didn't at least try. And that's the thing, I don't think there's any shame in like not finishing NaNo. If it's not your season, if you just had other shit going on, if you weren't feeling inspired, that's totally fine. And God knows that I sometimes feel that way, and I don't write when I maybe have the technical time, but I don't have the drive or the energy to do so. But it's the not trying that gets me. It's making a commitment and then letting myself off the hook from even giving it a go. And knowing that I need to put out footage, that I need to put out content, means that I'm really encouraged to actually physically put my butt in that seat and put my hands on the keyboard. Something that we've talked about before in previous videos is that it's hard for me to actually get into the seat, to actually get into a position where I force myself to encounter my manuscript and force myself to give it a chance. Like, I just decide it's not a writing day without even trying. And because I'm culpable to you, because I don't think that's the right use of the word culpable, but because it will be in a vlog or because it'll be in a video, I know that I need to at least try. It forces me to give actually writing a chance. And 9 times out of 10, as I've said before, I actually do have it in me to write. I can write something, I can push forward, even if it's not as much as I might otherwise want. I write something, and that feels really good. So I'm very grateful to have this small community to share with and to keep myself accountable to, and I really appreciate that, because I won NaNo for the first time in a long time, and that feels really good for me, especially because it was on a project that I really like. Mushiness and gratitude aside, let's get on to the actual after action report part, the part where we talk about what I wrote, how I wrote it, and how I felt about it. So for NaNo this year, I wrote 51,383 words in total. I technically finished the 50,000 words on November 29th in a Courtney live stream, because I've said before, but she just really puts the good stink on it. There's something about the way she runs her write-in sprints. But I also wrote an additional, I think like 400 and something words on the 30th, kind of just to say that I did, because like I had it in me, so why not? I wanted to keep the momentum going if it was at all possible. Of that 51,383 words, I wrote 6,163 in my secret project, which I will have a whole video about. I'm like very deeply passionate about it, and I'm excited to gush. It's a YA horror, which is like very weird for me, but it's less than I thought it would be. I thought, because I'm so passionate about that project and because I've been feeling so like intensely interested in writing it, that I would jump between the two of them quite a bit more, or I would find myself favoring the secret project. But that wasn't how it went. So yeah, I only wrote 6,000 words in my secret project. I did have another 2,000 words that I know I'm gonna delete. And I felt a little bit weird about including them in my word count, because like I know I'm gonna get rid of them. One is a scene that I have completely rewritten already, and one is a scene that just doesn't really work anymore, and I'm gonna have to go back to like bare bones basics and rip it apart. But I didn't delete it. And the reason I didn't delete them, and the reason that I'm counting them towards my word goal, is that I know that there's a ton of words in this manuscript that are going to be completely deleted. Like, I know there's a lot that's wrong. As we've said when I was talking about my Karen Asher books, my outline has to be really intense, but then my drafting process really affects my outline, because I don't have the instincts yet to recognize where my outline needs more work if I'm doing something wrong. Like, I have to encounter that as part of the drafting process. So you may remember in my plotting video that I said Lee was this controlled, polished, self-contained vampire guy, and part of the reason that he and Hannah work so well together is that she's a little bit wilder, she's a little bit crazier, and so she helps bring out the like playful, relaxed side of him, and he helps her to rein herself in a little bit more. And like, they balance each other really well. Well, in my original version of the outline and as I first tackled the manuscript, he was just this like nice, friendly guy who was like kind and funny and approachable and jovial, and he was perfect and like too easy, which A, doesn't really fit that like cold, controlled vampire guy, and B, is kind of boring to write and to like deal with. He was just nice, and like I want him to stay nice because the problems in this book are really about like Hannah's intimacy issues, but like he couldn't just be this like perfect guy. That's not interesting. So I changed him up a little bit. I made him more withdrawn, more stoic, more, you know, silent, sensitive type. And I think that works a lot better with who he is and how their dynamic works. But it also means that there's a bunch of stuff and a bunch of the scenes that I've already written before I made that decision that need to be changed in like really significant ways. So because this is like mostly just a zero draft, it's me just like encountering these characters, encountering this world, and building it kind of from the ground up, I know that I'm gonna delete a ton of it. So keeping those 2,000 words that I know are going to be deleted doesn't feel cheaty to me. It feels like cheating adjacent, but I'm okay with it because I know that there's a ton of stuff in this manuscript that will be deleted. And like, the point of NaNo is not to write a finished perfect novel, it's to write 50,000 words. And I did that, and I'm counting it as a win, and you're not the boss of me, so. But there were a couple of lessons that I learned along the way writing this NaNo. And let's start with the lessons that I have already fucking learned and apparently needed to learn again because I'm not that bright. The first one is that the more consistently I write, the easier it is for me to write consistently, both in terms of consistent quality and also just in terms of sitting down and writing becomes easier the more that I do it, which I learned in previous quarters several times and I just keep forgetting. I think it's because my natural inclination is to give myself excuses not to write. My natural inclination is to give myself excuses to be like a little bit lazy. And so kind of forcing myself to be really consistent is something that I need to reinforce over and over and over again. But you know, on week 2, I think, when I wasn't writing very regularly, I didn't write for like 4 days. And it was because I let myself skip it one day and then I didn't write yesterday, so I'm just not gonna do it today. And then it snowballed, right? And I had to have a 7,000 word day, which was not great for me in terms of like feeling a lot of pressure, in terms of feeling like weird guilt about it, because you know I'm a perfectionist and I feel guilty when I feel like I'm not achieving. But I just let myself snowball into not writing. And then when I do write consistently, even if I only write 300 words, 400 words, 1,000 words, if I'm sitting down every day to work on it, it becomes a lot easier to sit down the next day and work on it, and to sit down the day after that and to work on it. And then like, okay, maybe I only get 500 words for 3 days in a row, but then on a Friday when I don't have work, maybe I get 3,000, or maybe I get 5,000, or maybe I have a 7,000 word Sunday and I catch totally up and it's perfect. But like, it's really about sitting down and encountering my manuscript and getting into that habit of this is when I write, and this is, it's just something I do, like putting on coffee every morning and doing my laundry. It's just something that gets done. Another lesson that I needed to reteach myself, even though I already knew, was that I need to add structure to my day. I can't just put off writing indefinitely. Without the hard deadline of me starting my day job and needing to stop writing then, I will just push off writing forever until it's like 4 o'clock in the afternoon and I haven't written anything and I feel like shit because I didn't decide not to write. It was just something that kind of happened and it got away from me, and it's like this whole sneaky hate spiral that makes me feel crummy, and then the crummier I feel, the less inspired I am to write. So another lesson that I already learned that I need to reteach myself is to actually hit that writing earlier in the day, or at the very least make a plan for it. On days when I knew that like Courtney or Sarah Sutton had a write-in, I might not write early in the day, but I knew that there was gonna be a time when I did sit down and write, and I had like scheduled it. So it might not necessarily be that I have to schedule it first thing in the morning, although that's convenient for me. It's just that I have to schedule it for some time. There has to be a time in the day when I sit down and I do it and I hold myself to it. For me, part of the reason that writing early in the day works is that like if I just start, if I just do it first thing, then it's done, right? Like I've hit that deadline and it doesn't matter. If I tell myself that I'm gonna write at 4, if there's like a live stream that I'm joining, that's great because that is an external deadline. That forces me to go do something else. But if it's just my deadline, if I just say I'm gonna write at 4, well, I'm the boss of me. Like, No one can make me do that. So if 4 o'clock rolls around and I want to watch another episode of The Witcher, that's what I'm gonna do. But I learned 2 exciting new lessons about myself. The first is that I can totally bounce between projects, and it's good for me, actually. Being able to bounce between Lee and Hannah's book and my secret project really helped me whenever I was feeling really stuck. Because I'm so passionate and so in love with my secret project, there's always something that I can write in that world because I just love it so much, and it's like this giant project that is spiraling wildly out of control. But because of that, there's always something that I want to work on in that world. And so when Lee and Hannah was like sticky, or when I couldn't figure out where to go next, or there was a scene that was just like really bogging me down, I could bounce out of it and I could go work on my secret project and I could go play in that world, and I would stay generative and stay drafting and stay creative in that like same way, but I didn't have to like dwell on what wasn't working. And so being able to bounce between those 2 projects was really helpful for me. And despite the fact that I thought I was gonna end up kind of like turning my back on Lee and Hannah entirely for my secret project, I didn't. Part of that was because I had like told you I was gonna write Lee and Hannah, so I felt obligated to do so, and obligated in a good way. But like, I felt like I'd made that commitment, so I wanted to keep with them and keep with that world. But like, part of that was also that I knew I could come back to my secret project whenever I wanted to. So it didn't feel like I was sneaking time to spend with my secret project and like I had to stick with it for as long as I could or I wouldn't be able to go back. It was just part of what I was allowed to do. So I would write a few scenes, I would play around with a chapter in my new world, and then when I figured out what I wanted to do for Lee and Hannah, or if I was done writing for the day, I would just pick up Lee and Hannah the next day, or I would pick up the next scene with Lee and Hannah that I'd figured out. And it was a really good way to keep me like creatively on task, but without letting myself get bogged down in anything that was like frustrating me, because I can get to a point where I like don't know what I want to do in a scene, or I don't know how I want to approach something, and that frustrates me and makes me not want to write it anymore because I don't like not being good at things. So it was really helpful to have like an alternative to that, another way that I could turn my creative energy without feeling like I was doing something wrong or that I was like cheating. The other new thing that I let myself do, which is very similar, is that I've been letting myself bounce around in my outline. Because I always outline so intensely, there's not really any harm in jumping around. I always kind of know where I need to go, and I know if there's threads that I need to bring into those scenes, and of course, it's like really a 0 draft, so I'm gonna do a lot of edits later if they need to be done. But because I was letting myself jump around in it, there was always something that I wanted to write. It was not that common for me to actually hit a point with Lee and Hannah that I didn't have anything I was interested in writing. I could always jump around. I could do part of a scene that I was like really inspired by and just leave some notes for myself about what else I wanted to do in that scene. I could move to wherever I was inspired. At first, I was worried that I would only ever be inspired to write the same kind of things, but like as my mood changed and as what I was interested in writing changed, I would like move around in my outline, and I kind of came back and revisited most of the scenes. So this feels all very rambly, and I don't know if it's beneficial to anyone but me, but thank you again for, you know, giving me that accountability, helping me stick with it as I work through this NaNo and have like the best NaNo I've had in a really long time. I wrote 51,000 words, and that is totally fucking awesome. And 6,000 of them were on my super secret project, but the rest were in Hannah and Lee's book, and I love them, and I'm so excited to keep working on them. I've given myself like a little bit of a break over the last couple of days. It's December 3rd, and I didn't write anything on the 1st, and then I dicked around with some dirty fan fiction on the 2nd, but after some homework today, I think I'm just gonna hop right back into Lee and Hannah's world and keep going with them because I love them so much. And I just, you know, so appreciate my little audience here. I've relearned a couple of lessons that I need structure in my day and I need to schedule my writing time, that I write better when I write consistently, and I have to like at least encounter my manuscript and give myself the chance to write, because usually that's enough to get me actually writing. But then I learned some new things, you know? I learned that bouncing between projects is good for me creatively, and that bouncing around in an outline is also really good for me creatively. And like, maybe that's the piece that I was missing when I knew I wanted really intense outlines, but my drafts were also so scratchy sometimes. Maybe that was the missing ingredient, was letting myself move around in the outline. But anyway, thank you so much for sticking with me for this like very rambly video. Please let me know how you did with NaNo. I would love to talk about it. I have so many NaNo vlogs that I need to catch up on, so I'm gonna run off and do that now. But if you're looking for me anywhere else, I'm pretty much everywhere as Kayla Amanda. That is Kaylughmanda, and I'll see you next time.